Recruiters know how to spot a good resume, but do they know how to write one for themselves?
So there are a few things that I think all TA professionals and recruiters should include on their resume. And I'm going to boil it down to 3 points, and they all start with the letter P. Okay. People, we want accomplishments that emphasize what you've done in terms of moving a company's people strategy forward. There's process. What have you done to improve upon or to completely transform and overhaul processes? And
that's Kamara Toffolo, a resume writer and job search strategist who's helped countless recruiters and TA professionals transform their resumes from not so good to great. In today's episode, she's sharing the secrets to writing a resume that stands out. We spoke about why even recruiters struggle with writing a good resume, how to showcase your accomplishments effectively, how to tailor your resume for specific industries or roles. And Kamara even shared the 3 things every TA resume should include. These past few years have been rough for us in TA, but I can see things are changing. If you're ready to jump back into the job market and find your next TA role, you don't want to miss this episode. It's packed with actionable advice to help you create a resume that truly reflects your skills and experience. Let's dive into my conversation with Kamara. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Kamara. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to be here.
I know. I think we go way, way back. I was just telling my husband, you were the first and practically much the only person I've ever pitched to be on their show or podcast. I remember I was so nervous. I was like, can I be on your live show when you were doing your office hours back? I think it was 2020, 2021.
Yeah,
and you were like, sure. So it was the nicest person ever to pitch because I was so scared. And you were like, oh, yeah, of course. Let's make it happen.
I really appreciate that. But I have to tell you, like, I had you in mind, like you were already on my list of people that I wanted to approach. So it was kind of kismet that you that you reached out to me. Like, I really appreciate that. So, and we had a great episode, and I still get like great comments on it, which is wonderful. So thank you for being on my show.
Amazing. So I'm so happy to have you here today talking about a topic that is pretty, I hate resumes. I'm going to say it. I think everyone knows this. I hate resumes. One of the reasons is because I'm really bad at writing resumes. That's what I think, right? I see resumes all day as a recruiter. And the past, I would say 4 or 5 years, I've been in leadership. I've seen, and I've been hiring recruiters, obviously, for my recruiting team. And I think I'm not the only recruiter out there whose resume is a hot mess. So why do you think it's so difficult for recruiters and TA pros to write their own resumes?
Well, I've thought about this from time to time because I have had a few recruiter and TA clients. And when I do see their original resume, I'm like, I'm surprised this isn't better. And I'm surprised that you need to hire me. But I feel like it's sort of like when it comes to resumes, you know, recruiters and TA pros are really like connoisseurs. But I feel like it's I know a good resume when I see it scenario. So not necessarily like I can tell you exactly what makes for an amazing resume. It's an intuitive, like, you know, I know a good resume when I see it, but I have to see it, you know? So I think it's just because recruiters and TA pros are just bombarded with thousands and thousands and thousands of resumes all the time and across the course of your careers. And so I think it's just, you know when you like it, but there aren't, you don't have the specifics that really jump out to you as like, this makes for a great resume. I don't know. I would love to hear more recruiter and TA pro opinions on their own resumes and why they think that they're not good.
I don't know. I think it's kind of like what you said. We see so many, we know how to spot one, but I personally am so done at the end of the day from reading resumes that the last thing I want to do is write my own resume. That's why for the last couple of years, I've always hired a resume writer.
Fair enough. I can totally understand being completely sick of it. So that also makes a lot of sense.
So, one of the challenges that I see is folks have is quantifying their accomplishments, right? So, what are some
Hmm.
creative ways that TA professionals can like showcase their metrics and like the accomplishments that they've had without it feeling weird?
Yeah, I guess it can really feel weird as a recruiter or a TA professional because when we think about what you specialize in, it's people, right? So what are we doing counting people? Like where's the value in that, right? So I I think what it really boils down to when we are trying to quantify and it not feel weird is we want to reinforce any metric that we share with business impact. So, for example, this sounds weird. Recruited for and filled 50 technical roles, let's say, as an accomplishment on its own. But if we were to build on that and say recruited and filled 50 technical roles within a certain time frame in order to enable growth or rapid growth for the company, that's a totally different way to present it. So I think as long as we're backing up any numbers we share with that business impact or business enablement, that can help it feel a lot less weird. Um, I think also using percentages can be helpful. And this isn't just for recruiters or TA professionals, but many professions. Like we can make accomplishments, quantifiable accomplishments, sound stronger and more impactful often when we use percentages rather than counting things out. Because when we count things out, depending on the audience, it may seem like a small number, may seem like a huge number, may seem like a mid number. So when we are actually using percentages, it does a better job of making the accomplishment a little bit more universal or translatable across industries or professions. So I think, especially for recruiters and TA folks, if we're trying to measure maybe something like an increase, or I should say an improvement in like time to fill or time to hire rates, that's where a percentage would come into play as being really helpful. And we can also use percentages when we're talking about efficiency as well. So if we improve the process, built a process, optimized how we use technology platforms, there's probably some sort of quantifiable accomplishment in there from an efficiency standpoint that we can measure in a percentage, and that will hopefully make it feel a little less weird, like we're just counting heads, you know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's a great way to think about it and put it. And also, the real way to stand out as a recruiter, and I know as someone who's hired recruiters, you don't want to be the person who's just like the transactional recruiter. You want to be the strategic recruiter. And how can you showcase that you're strategic is by tying back your accomplishments to the business. It also, I see it as a way of like putting in like stepping in the door the right way,
Mm,
because I'm not just filling in roles for you. I'm not just putting butts in seats. I'm actually making your business run, because without people, it would not run. So when you tie back your accomplishments as a recruiter to business accomplishments, that's gold.
I love that. And I love how you say I'm making your business run. That's exactly what it is. Without people, like, what are you going to do? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been amazed, and from as someone coming from a different industry, because I used to be a software engineer before I moved
Right.
into TA. How or where did that breakdown happen where companies and people in general, even candidates, have decided that recruiters are like this disposable, not important? They are essential to your business. They're
A
bringing
hundred
in your
percent.
people.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So, in addition to like the accomplishments and the things that we tie back to the business, it's also a people business, right? Recruiting is about people. How can people showcase their soft skills and leadership qualities on a resume?
Uh, so we talked a lot about quantifying accomplishments and quantifiable accomplishments on a resume, and that is kind of the foundation of great resume writing. But I don't want folks to shy away from qualitative accomplishments as well. So while numbers convey impact really quickly, we can still use our words to convey the impact that we've had in our roles. And so I feel like qualitative accomplishments are what you're going to want to lean on when we are talking about the softer skills or leadership side of things. So when we're talking about emphasizing leadership skills, let's say, we'll probably want to highlight instances of where we have led a team to accomplish a certain thing, or where we're not a team leader, where we've mentored or coached peers or folks who are junior to us to achieve a certain thing, whatever that thing may be. It could even be career progression for a particular person. So there's been many times where I've highlighted promotion, helping someone achieve a promotion. So my clients have coached someone to achieve a promotion for themselves. And I think that's a great accomplishment to demonstrate leadership skills. From a client management perspective, or like a hiring manager management perspective, I think it would be a great idea to provide examples of initiatives, let's say, that maybe you came up with or led or championed that improve the engagement with hiring managers and that partnership with those clients, so to speak.
Perfect. A lot of TA folks, especially now where a lot of teams are slashed and your TA team of one to do everything, they also are involved in employer branding initiatives. Like, can you share some tips on how they can leverage that employer branding experience to make their resumes stand out?
Sure. So in an ideal world, there's going to be some sort of metric or measurement tied to these employer branding initiatives. Like, we want to measure the effort of our output, right? That's what we want to lean on if we can. In the absence of having an actual metric, what we can do is maybe consider where there are instances where we maybe came up with the idea for an employer branding initiative. So let's say, as a recruiter or talent acquisition professional, our idea was to use social media to start sharing more like daily or behind the scenes type of content to attract the right type of talent to us. So if we came up with that idea, then simply explaining we came up with the idea is an accomplishment in and of itself, and that it was implemented. If there's a metric to tie to it, even better. But there's many different ways that you could highlight various employer branding initiatives, whether it's something you came up with or even contributed to. So again, we can quantify where possible, but we can also use qualitative accomplishments as well.
And now I want to touch a little bit. I realized that at the beginning I said that a lot of recruiter resumes are a hot mess. One of the reasons why I call recruiter resumes a hot mess is because you can see in one resume, people try to put everything about the various industries, job types, every single thing they've ever recruited for. How can TA professionals tailor their resumes to effectively showcase their skills and their experience for specific roles?
Yeah, that's a common pitfall fall across every profession. Is we always want to cover every possible scenario in our resume, right? So this really boils down to having a clearly defined target role. So even if you are staying within recruiting or talent acquisition, if we still want to identify at least target industries or target companies, would be even better. And so in doing that, that's going to give you a solid base from which to refine what you're sharing in your resume. And if we're making a shift, let's say we recruited for like sales before, now we want to move more towards software or engineering, let's say, we want to consider kind of the common pain points shared between the sales organization trying to attract and retain talent and the software or engineering organization trying to attract and retain that type of talent, and really highlight instances of where we've done a good job of solving that pain point. But again, it really boils down to that target and having that target clearly defined. so you're not feeling compelled to share everything.
And I don't know, this is for some reason controversial because some recruiters think you have to create a new resume for each role. Others, like me, believe you tailor per industry. And I understand that right now, especially in this landscape, people have been without jobs for a long time, especially TA and recruiting. We've been hit hard with layoffs. So you're not like, I know people listening to this are thinking, I don't have a target industry. I just want a job. What do you think? This is my approach to this. So I've recruited across tech, media, and also sales. I don't like doing sales, so I don't even create a resume. I don't even put that on my resume because I don't like recruiting sales. I don't
Yeah.
want that job. But I usually create one resume that I can send for any tech roles, tech companies, one resume for any media ones. And then I have one that kind of has like the intersection of both because there are companies that have both. I worked at one, that was my last place. Do you agree with that approach?
I do. That would probably be my approach as well. Either that approach or more of a master resume approach, which is effectively what you're doing. You just have everything in separate documents. So I think that's a great way to approach it. And I like that you said that you don't include sales because you don't want to do it. So, and that's really something that we should be following for resume writing across every profession is don't include stuff you want less of. So if you don't want to do sales, don't put like sales recruiting, don't include sales recruiting accomplishments. But yeah, I really like your approach. I think tailoring, especially when you have a clearly defined role, like you're like, I want to recruit. And the variation is within or is across industries. I think that approach is a perfect one, exactly what I would do. Worst case scenario, you have a base resume and then you might tailor it a little bit tailor your accomplishments a little bit depending on what you want to attract for your next role. But yeah, I love your approach.
Yeah, I think, and when you mentioned the not putting things that you don't want to do, I learned that the hard way because I remember putting something on a resume, and that was back when I was working in as a software project manager. I remember putting a type of project that I absolutely hated. Well, guess what? Next job turns out that they hired me specifically because of that type of project, and I was like, I can't get away from this. And I
Oh
didn't say
no.
anything, but I remember my manager saying like, I'm so excited to hire you for this because we're about to start this. And I was like, great.
Oh no. More of the stuff I hate.
So there I learned things I hate, even if I'm great at them, do not go on my resume.
That's right. That's right. Just because you're good at it doesn't mean you have to do it, right?
Yeah. So let's say a TA professional is targeting a new industry or a new
Mm.
role. What are some resume tailoring tips that you can share in that scenario?
So this really again comes back to those common pain points between the recruiting that we've been doing and the recruiting that we want to be doing. So I think earlier I mentioned about maybe like retention being a problem. So let's say you've previously recruited for a profession that has like new higher turnover, but it's something that you were able to solve or improve upon, and that you're looking to move into an industry that has that similar challenge. That's an example of something that we would want to highlight as an accomplishment. Are you wondering about going from recruiting into a totally different profession or just industries mostly?
Yeah, industries is good, but for example, what about a lot of recruiters want to go into like employee experience or employer branding or HR proper, like HR business partners? How would you tailor that?
Sure. So if we're planning on making like a profession change, a profession career change, we really want to focus on translating, so to speak, the accomplishments and experience that we do have to make sense towards that new direction. So let's say we want to do recruiting to, as you said, proper HR. We would really want to make sure that we are highlighting instances, especially of strategic work, where we are building, developing, and implementing people strategies. So that would be really important. Ways that we've advised hiring managers on whatever in order to achieve whatever their objectives are, and how you help them achieve that. So really taking, say, maybe that straight recruiting experience and just morphing it a little bit and massaging it a little bit so that someone can understand it in the HR context, as an example. Again, this, like, before we do any of this, it really comes down to that target job.
It's all about the targeting, and
All
I
about
know
that.
both you and I are on the same page on that. So I know it will come up many times throughout this interview.
Yes,
But
yeah.
it is something important, and it is something that a lot of people don't take into account. And to me, it's the most important thing of your job search. You need to know what you're looking for, what you're targeting.
Agreed.
So TA is very competitive. It always has been, but even more so now. What are some unique ways that you think TA professionals can make their resume stand out from the rest of the pile?
I think that the TA and recruitment folks who really stand out from the crowd are those who are really focused on upskilling. So staying on top of technology innovation, staying on top of the new tech tools and trends that are emerging, and maybe even taking it upon themselves to engage in additional professional development in order to show that commitment to staying at the top of their field. I think that's really what it comes down to. Of course, we want to show we're qualified and that we are doing great things for the business. That's priority one. But when we want to add to that, that's where we want to consider kind of those stretch opportunities, or where we've tried to, again, upskill and really stay competitive ourselves and take it upon ourselves to stay competitive. I think that's really where people are standing out.
Yeah, and I think it's a way of not only showcasing that you are qualified for the present role, but recruiting changes really quick. So it's a way to future proof your resume and show that it's like, okay, this is what I've done, this is what I've accomplished, but I'm someone who's constantly learning and evolving. So I'm not just going to be good at this thing, at whatever they throw at me tomorrow, AI 2.0, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm going to be good at it.
absolutely.
How can TA professionals leverage AI tools in their resume writing process without losing their unique voice?
I was having an extensive conversation about AI today, actually. I admit that I have not adopted AI effectively. And I am not the most knowledgeable person about AI. And this is a cue to me that I need to do more studying and investigation. But when we think about tools like a Chat GPT and making use of that for our resume writing, I like Chat GPT from a prompt perspective. I like using it for ideas, but we can't use its output directly. I mean, you could probably speak better to this than I can, but like, I know that folks are applying with Chat GPT resumes that scream Chat GPT, right?
Yes, they're doing it. And it's not only non TA job seekers, because that's, to be honest, out of control, but recruiters are also doing it. And it's like, come on, guys. We expect more from a recruiter resume, to be honest. And I
No
don't know if
kidding.
it's fair, but I know when I'm hiring, I want to see, yes, I love that you're using AI. That shows me that you're someone that's staying at the cutting edge and all of that. Do not use those AI buzzwords that we all know: unlock, unleash. No one before AI, I never saw anyone unleash anything on their resume. Like, that's not. Have you ever seen the word unleash on a resume before
I'm guilty of
AI?
using it. I'm
Really?
guilty of I don't think I used unlock, but I used unleash a few times. but I never used it in an accomplishment. So it was more so in branding statements. So guilty as charged. Um, but that's good to know that that's a buzzword. But I think there's no way to pull pull the wool over recruiters and talent acquisition professionals. It's like they're gonna know if it's a direct copy paste from Chat GPT. Let's just use AI and Chat GPT for ideas. And I think that's where it's safe and also advantageous. Like if you're really stuck on what can I highlight on my resume, ask Chat GPT and maybe it'll give you some really solid ideas. And then you come up with the writing on your own.
Yeah, and I want to say I did not, and I will never disqualify anyone because I can tell that their resume was written with ChatGPT. What I can say is I would be way more critical of the accomplishments because it's like, are they real? Like, who fed
Mm,
this accomplishment? Did ChatGPT
mm-hmm.
come up with it? Or is this a real thing? So it's a resume that I would do a lot more digging into to be like,
Right.
okay, let's try and find what's real versus what isn't real. And that's why I stay away from copy and pasting from ChatGPT because I think it kind of like doesn't build the trust that you need to build with a resume. It's a quick trust of like, oh, I want to know more about this person. But if you're
Mm,
already thinking, is this true? Is this not true? There's a
mm,
lot more digging, and ChatGPT doesn't necessarily help you answer those extra digging questions.
right. Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah.
So I want to provide like some actionable takeaways for our listeners. Can you share like 3 to 5 key things that every TA professional should include on their resume?
So there are a few things that I think all TA professionals and recruiters should include on their resume. And I'm going to boil it down to 3 points, and they all start with the letter P. Okay. So, people, we want accomplishments that emphasize what you've done in terms of moving a company's people strategy forward. There's process. What have you done to improve upon or to completely transform and overhaul processes that did a better job of enabling a people strategy forward? And platforms. How have you leveraged the technology that your organization uses in order to help grow teams that further enable the business to do what it's wanting to do? So people, processes, platforms. I think when we stress accomplishments in these 3 categories, we'll be able to build a really solid professional experience section.
Perfect. I like that. So, with AI becoming more prevalent, like I just came from a conference from RecFest, and every HR tech vendor out there, or most of them, are talking about AI this, AI that. It's like at one point, one of the hosts said, like, let's do AI bingo anytime the word AI happens. Because it was like, it was that much that you were hearing about
Wow.
it. So yes, AI is important. I don't think AI is taking over our jobs. Like I'll put that out there. But it's important to know AI and to be like knowledgeable of what's out there. How can someone highlight AI literacy and experience with AI tools on their resume?
That's a really good question because I've done a horrible job of building my own AI literacy. A lot of it comes down to exploration. So exploring AI and its capabilities, not necessarily making use of it, but kind of playing around with it and seeing what it could possibly do. I also think that there is a self-study component. That's what I'm going to strive to do as well. There are a lot of courses out there. Mind you, this is still an emerging concept. So the courses that are out there are still just scratching the surface at this point. But I think there is benefit to taking some even freebie courses on AI as it relates to HR, AI as it relates to recruiting and talent acquisition, in order to just build your base familiarity with AI. If we have actually used AI on the job, what we want to make sure we do is highlight what business impact resulted from that. But we also want to make sure that we are indicating how we've used AI responsibly, because AI is misunderstood in a lot of cases and also can run a little wild in some cases and is always subject to scrutiny. So we just want to make sure that we're indicating the action we took with the AI, what the result was of that AI, and how we made sure to remain compliant in our, from a people perspective while making use of that AI.
That's a really good call out. And I hadn't thought about it, but yes, as a leader, if I were hiring a recruiter, yes, I want someone who's familiar with AI, who has leveraged it in some way, but has done it responsibly. I don't want someone who is so into AI that next thing I know, every single job description, offer letter, everything is just going to be, hey, ChatGPT, do this, without looking through stuff, because that's legal liabilities and a
Totally.
lot of things slippery slope we don't want to get into. So that's a really good
Totally.
call out.
Thank you.
So this has been a great conversation. I know folks are going to get a lot of benefit out of it. How can listeners connect with you?
I am Kamara Toffolo everywhere, but where I'm most active is LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you just look up my name, Kamara Toffolo, you will find me there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Kamara.
Thank you for having me.
Remember, your resume is not just a list of past jobs. It's a strategic document that should highlight your unique value proposition as a TA professional. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for this nightmare TA job market to be a thing of the past. Over the next few weeks, I'm sharing episodes that will help you get back in the game. Be sure to subscribe to Throw Out the Playbook podcast wherever you get your podcast. And if you liked what you heard today, please leave a 5-star review. Reviews help other listeners find us. Thanks for listening, and I'll chat with you next week.